Hello everyone, welcome to a new Weapon Refined Theory Crafting episode. This time we'll take a look at Mathilda, Laszlo, Boey, Oliver, Matthew, and Cecilia, as obvious as this is. And, well, let's get started. First off will be Mathilda. Now, honestly, this is probably the most boring name I could come up with, but at the same time I had no clue what to really give her as a weapon name. I guess Legendary Lance could have worked, since she's always referred to as a legendary knight, but that sounds a bit too generic to me. So, Mathilda's lance here basically gives her, under specific circumstance, a cooldown -1 and special fighter. It requires her to be surrounded with at least 2 of the following type: cavalry and flying, meaning Claire and Clive, if you can piece the two together. I believe those are the only social links she has outside of Alm, but like that's the main 2 social link for her that really describe her character as a whole. Outside of, you know, talking to Alm, which also refers to the fact that she has apparently 4 sisters? What? But, that said, it's basically just special fighter with a cooldown -1 weapon. Cooldown -1 weapon is just better than effective against cavalry. The main point why she even had Rider's Bane was because her weapon was meant to upgrade to Ramphia, which we all know ended up coming to Claire. And I could not give her a different pref weapon from that game. It's just not happening, because I already gave all of the legendary weapon that makes sense. I gave Crime Hill to Burkut. Emperor's Lance is going to be locked to Rudolph. There's no reason for her to have it. Sonian has been given to Lucas. Ramphia has been given to Claire. And I believe there was one more which has already been given as well. So this was the best I could do. And at the same time, it really helps her stat line. A lot of the best user for special fighter are all-rounders, which is why she gets 3 to all stat. Her stat line is very all over the place. That's basically how she even worked as a character in the game she's from. She always was an all-rounder with low HP. And guess what Mathilda is here? Well, an all-rounder with low HP. So pushing the all-rounder nature, aka 3 to all stats, while also giving special fighter, which allows her to take full advantage to that stat line, felt like the most obvious one, but at the same time I did not want her to be just a horse unit that could just like ram into something and then just kill everything. So I wanted it to be limited to her having certain units around her, aka Claire and Clive, which puts it at a limiter and makes her used in a way that's different from Cavs typically, but also gives her a lot of strength. Aether, for example, is able to be procced on every fight. Skills such as Bonfire, or in her case more like Iceberg, she'll get hit, proc it, she'll get hit again, she'll proc it again. So anyone that uses a 5 cooldown special on her will basically be decimated, because she also shuts down Bold Fighter. Her res is really good against characters such as Legendary Tiki and Halloween Mur. Also to some extent Idun, because, well, she still shuts down whatever the fuck Idun's using. And she's not an armored unit, so she's kind of a hard counter considering she has 34 res. 37 with the lance. And Idun can't run Gale Force because she's a dragon, so you get the idea. This would make her a solid unit to basically deal with most unit in general, especially dragons, while also not make her a just impossible to beat unit. So it's just kind of like, it's fair, essentially. So yeah. Let's move on to Laszlo. Now, Laszlo is a bit of an interesting case. A lot of people thought this weapon was really strong at first and then realized the few flaws it has. It is all player phase. If you're fighting him on the enemy phase, this is basically a 16 might 3 HP silver weapon. Nothing else. Actually, a silver weapon will do you better in enemy phase. However, in player phase, it does give you quite a bit of advantage. As long as an infantry or cavalry unit is within 2 space, which are there to reference Selena, which, you know, and Xander, which, again, you know, and to some extent also Owain, Odin, sorry, which are basically people from the same world as him and is Lord. He gets to basically proc Gale Force free of charge every time. It does not run on special. It does not come to run on anything. It just basically, if he initiates with those units around them, he procs Gale Force. However, if a unit with Sing or Dance is within 2 space of him, when he does this, he doesn't proc it. This is a reference to how, when he wanted to practice dancing, Olivia would just try to basically spy on him, and every time he would just be like, nope, I'm not performing around you, mother. And this is kind of why he's always been fairly awkward about this. So it just kind of, just a bit more of personality into it. As for the initiative, I forgot to add this. Oh, actually, no, I didn't. It's Laslow's Blade. I wasn't sure if it was the pref skill or the weapon. Laslow's Blade is a weapon in Fates, which is, by the way, proper translation is Lasward's Dance Sword, or if you take the localized name of Laszlo, Laslow's Dance Sword, or possibly Dancing Blade, instead of Laslow's Blade. Thank you, Treehouse, for always, as per usual, being a shit stain on the face of the universe. It's a dancing blade, so that's kind of the idea. He dances himself, in a way, and that's why he gets to move a second time. Now, the weapon only gives 3 speed and makes you lose 3 def and 3 res, does not give any crit, which is a shitty as fuck weapon, so I decided to make it different. I decided to make it an initiating life and death that's more in the favor of its user. However, it does cost a bit of your def and res. In other words, if you do get hit by something, you'll take a bunch of damage. Not by much, not nearly as bad as life and death, but it's still worth mentioning. If you're, for example, if you're just baiting with, oh, I don't know, Legendary Tiki, Laslow's fucked. That's just what it is. And you have to understand, it needs to have a unit within 2 space that's fitting the criteria without having the dance skill. This can be easier said than done, especially if you're going on the offensive. Which means you'd have to move the unit near him, so then when he attacks, he gets the bonus. This can work sometimes, but not all the time, which is why it has drawbacks, it has clear drawbacks, but it works with the character. He does have a super boon in speed. Combo with his weapon, he hits 36 speed. Combo with an A skill and a Seal skill, he can easily proc over 40 speed. And he has the attack for it. But, like I said, it has its own weakness. And you have to, you know, carefully go around those. So, yeah. It's definitely better than what Anna got. Am I right, fellas? Anyway, next up is Boey. Now, Boey's artwork in Heroes depicts him with an Excalibur. It's not 100% the same thing. It seems to be a slightly different one, but it definitely looks more like Excalibur than any other tomes. And so I decided to call it Boey's Excalibur, because I don't want him to have the same Excalibur as, you know, Boey. So, I decided to give it 2 effect, which because it's not effective against flyers, I decided to completely remove this, despite it, you know, being the case in other games. I don't believe it's actually a thing in Echoes. As for the characters the Refine is based on, it's basically the main team you start with, which are Maid, Boey, Jenny, and Celica, which I did not know before I actually worked on Boey, but Jenny is completely optional. You can just forget her here on the dock and fuck right off. Without a fucking healer. Isn't that great? But yeah, so it's essentially 2 attack speed within 2 space of the unit. So if he only has 2, it's actually worse than Merrick. If he has 3, it's better than Merrick. You get the idea. As for the second effect, if unit is within 2 space of magic or staff ally, which is based on May, Boey, and Jenny, unit can counter attack regardless of foe's range. This is close counter. It's just as obvious as can be. You can definitely use it pretty well because at the end of the day, you have to understand. 29 attack, 27 speed. This is shit. No offense, but it really is quite bad. So, here we are. And yeah, it's pretty basic, but it definitely helps him where it matters. With Speed Plus, he can hit upward to 34 speed with just 2 people around him. It also pushes his attack a bit further. The cooldown -1 allows him to use Bonfire a bit easier. And hell, he could even use Null Follow-Up with Attack Speed Bond as a seal. So, you know, it gives him more options, which is the goal of this. So, let's move on to Oliver, everyone's favorite. He has 1 Cypher card. It looks like ass, but it has a... The artwork for the art is just nowhere to be seen. It's either it with the card around it, or there's just nothing out there. So I decided to just say fuck it, and took the Path of Radiance art, and that's why it looks like ass. Anyway, the dude is basically a narcissistic asshole, so I decided to just double down on that notion. So what he gets is basically a worse Alto. However, because he disgusts his enemy to death, they all lose 7 to all their stat during combat. This is a during combat effect, meaning it can indeed combo into other skills such as Attack Ploy, Speed Ploy, Death Ploy, and Res Ploy, which are all stuff he can run pretty well with 34 res. However, after combat, if unit is adjacent to an ally, inflicts attack speed def res -7 to said ally. However, if he has no unit around him, he's the one that takes the -7 to all stats. Now, the idea behind this is that he disgusts even his allies, and if he has no ally around him to just look at him doing his thing, he just gets depressed. But you have to understand, this is a double-edged sword. Yes, it debuffs you. That is fair. That can be actually a bad effect. However, you can turn that into a strength with Harsh Command. Because if you have something like Harsh Command, or a unit like Idune, for example, that completely negates debuffs, Harsh Command would basically give you 7 to all stats for free. And if it's Idune, she just negates them and get 4 to all stats because of her fucking weapon effect. So it's a type of weapon that's just so you can have a type of source of debuff to yourself, which can be useful in certain cases, like I said with Idune and probably other characters later down the line. So yeah, and like I said, you can just reverse it with Harsh Command, with say, oh I don't know, a Blade Tome or Levitain with 7 to all stats. I think you get the idea. It's just really, really strong. So, yeah. And that's also one of the reasons I decided not to give 2 to all stats if he has people adjacent to him. And just make it within 2 space. Therefore, you can actually just, you know, unlike Altom where you have to have someone adjacent to you, here you don't need to have someone adjacent to you. However, if you do want someone adjacent to you, then there's the option. So, yeah. Let's move on to Matthew. Matthew is a bit strange. Muscle boy. So, Knight's Memento. For those who don't know, Knight, Lela means knight. That's why I decided to just call it Knight's Memento. It's just so it's a bit more subtle than just Lela's Memento. So, what it is a cooldown -1 weapon. During combat, calculates damage using unit's defense instead of unit's attack. When calculating damage, treats def as plus 14. After combat, if unit attacked, inflicts def res minus 7. So, just so you understand how this works, his attack stat is irrelevant, and his def stat does not get buffed by 14. Only his attack, basically. To put it simply, say you're attacking, okay? You have 30 def. The enemy has 49 attack, they do 19 on you. However, you don't have 39 attack, it takes your def stat of 30 and adds a 14 on top of it, and that's your actual attack stat. This can be relatively broken if you can get to Brazen range, because once you're in Brazen range, you can say, oh, I don't know, Brazen def res, and then you have plus 7 attack, def, and res, because your def stat is also your attack stat. So every stat increase you get into your def is basically counting as 2 stat up. It is alright. It definitely helps him because his attack is the main problem for him, sitting at 25. This pushes his attack up by 5 and makes it a lot easier for him to actually buff up his stat. Hell, you can actually make his res workable. And for the refine itself, all I made it is, at start of combat, if unit is within 2 space of an ally with their special ready, unit can counterattack regardless of foe's range. Now, the reason why is not on screen. I like the cipher too much and I just wanted it to be there. What can I say? But his affinity is wind, and Layla's affinity is also wind. Wind provides more crit rate. So the idea is that his allies get crit rate, therefore their specials are ready, and technically you will typically want to use Infantry Pulse on him for that reason. Infantry Pulse, and I don't know, a special that's easy to recharge. Units such as Special Spiral Lewin, for example, Special Spiral Ophelia, for example, Special Spiral, I was going to say Vanguard Ike, but that doesn't really work too good. Ira with Raft, just recharging the special, and so on. Nyla can also use the same combo with Moonbow. You get the idea overall, it's just you need to have someone with a special ready. If someone is a special ready, you get to have close counters straight up. It's very similar to Saber, but unlike Saber, which relies on himself, it relies on his allies, because he does not get crit rate from his own win affinity, he gives crit rate to other people. So this is the idea behind it. I did not want to give him extra stats on top of the close counter, because I'm gonna be honest, this refine is super strong as is. The fact is, if you have Brazen Def Res and then Brazen, I don't know, like Speed Def, or like, say you had like 2 Brazen Def and neither one of them had attack, okay? Just Brazen Def Res twice, for example. Your attack just jumps to 58, your defense is at 44, and your res is at 32. While you also still have 34 speed. This is unmerged, this is without IVs, so you get the idea. It just jumps a lot faster, but it does help him become fairly unique. With Def Plus, he basically has 33-34, attack and speed wise, and 33 Def. His res is still a weakness, but it's fairly workable, and once you're in Brazen range, you can actually take hits from mages a lot easier. So, yeah. Not much else to say about it. Moving on to Cecilia. So, you probably already know what this is going to say. I did kind of mention it when I was talking about, well, Leo. I said how Raven Tome should always have a see disrupt effect. Well, this is kind of the idea here, but I did not want it to be a refine effect because then it becomes really awkward to have the grant weapon triangle on top of something else. Raven Tome in general are very, very, very weak ass tome unless you're an infantry unit. So And even if you're an infantry unit, just look at fucking Robin, Mel Robin. Typically he won't even use it. He will use an Al Tome for obvious reason. Unless he runs Tactician Gale to support his team, and then he's not really a fighter, so yeah, you get the idea. So the idea is that this is a Raven Tome. It's called Teacher's Pride because she's Roy and Lilina's teacher, so that's why I based it on Roy and Lilina, aka Sword of Magic. This is a Grunraven Tome, and the second effect is just you get extra attack and defense for whatever allies are around you to combo into the second effect, which relies on you having Lilina and Roy. The Refine itself is Null Sea Disrupt. In other words, if you're dealing with Veronica, you can actually kill her off. However, if you run this with TA, then you can get fucked over by Brave Lyn, which will, obviously, at this point of time, if this becomes a type of weapon, run Cancel Affinity more and more. And if she does, well, yikes. However, if she runs Fire Sweep Bow with like double Poison Strike, you kill her ass. This would make her a niche pick against the, well, the absolute cancerous meta of Veronica, Reinhardt, and fucking Lyn on every teams. But at the same time, would fit her rather well. And hell, you could combo this with Reinhardt of your own if that's what you want, so, I mean, you know. This is the type of weapon I was expecting. Like, if you're going to give him a weapon that's inimitable, I would just have given a upgraded Raven Tome. Looking at you, Wolf Tomes that got an upgrade, but not Raven Tomes. And, just give this as a second effect, the Refine itself, without the restriction. Still, this is basically what my idea of what a weapon that would fit her most would be. Also, gorgeous cipher art. I absolutely love this art. But, yeah, not much else to say. So, as per usual, I guess I'm gonna see you all next month. All of these were chosen by people that were in my Twitch when I was working on this, so if you want to participate yourself, the best way I can put it is just join my Discord. I tend to just add people whenever I do get live, and I say why I get live. Usually, if it's Saturday, it's just me streaming, because this is my streaming day. If it's not Saturday, then it's either I'm working on a banner or on a video, or both. So, you know. As per usual, I'll see you all later. Have a nice one, everyone.